a.m. And in response, the separatist fighters banned the circulation of vehicles, and some vehicles have already been set ablaze for violating this injunction from the separatist fighters. The situation is quite complicated there. We're analyzing that in this edition of The Inside. We are also looking at the power of youths in the world's youngest continent, the African continent, in the light of what has been happening in Kenya, with a new and bold generation of young people taking to the streets and compelling the president of the country, William Ruto, to back down on some tax policies, notably tax hikes that were in view. And the people took to the streets, burning a section of the National Assembly, and several people, at least 22, have been killed in the protest in Kenya. In the light of that happening, or those happenings in Kenya, we're looking at the power of the youths in Africa. Stay with us and meet our guest in some few seconds. Our first guest today with me here in the studio is Pascal TAGUIA FOMEKONG. He's a civil society leader and human rights advocate. You're welcome to the program.
Hello, Mr. Babiden. It's a pleasure. I hope our cheers are going to join the one for all the millions of Cameroonians seeing what is happening. And I'm very excited to see if I can bring my little star in trying to settle this if it is possible, because right from the beginning, as a human rights advocate, when this happened in 2016, all the televisions were invited. I said that was a mistake from the government. But I don't think we are at that level anymore now. That same government has tried to show its resilience and tried to find a solution. But what can we do now? Because this, just as you are saying, it's frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Now, when you think of what is the motorcycle now in the Western region in general, seeing that from 6 o'clock up to the next 6, they cannot run, that would put any direction even about the economy.
The situation is quite difficult. Now, our second guest joining us from London is Maître Alex NDIVE LISINGUE. Maître Alex NDIVE LISINGUE was admitted as solicitor of the Supreme Court in England and Wales. He is a political consultant, a civil society and human rights advocate, and constitutional law expert. You're welcome to the program, Ned.
Good evening, Babila. Thank you. Always a pleasure to be on your program, and my greetings to the beautiful people of the Cameroon.
Joining us in this edition of the program. We have not had a discussion with you for some time now. Tell us, Matt, how is the situation there in the diaspora with some of our fellow compatriots, Cameroonians who are in the diaspora, raising quite a good number of concerns, notably with the number one being this issue of dual nationality, which is not yet accepted in Cameroon?
Mr. Babila, when it comes to dual nationality, during the national dialogue, I was in Cameroon and we had this debate on one of the televisions in Cameroon. I've looked at the law of dual nationality. It was promulgated by President Amadou Ahidjo in 1968. And from what I can gather, there's dual nationality in Cameroon because I've looked at the articles there, and some articles say if you're a Cameroonian lady and you're married to a foreigner, you don't change you acquire a new nationality and you still remain a Cameroonian. That's dual nationality. Another aspect about the nationality law of 1968 again, it says that if, in case you want to denounce or renounce the nationality of Cameroon, you have to do so, especially if you are abroad in the embassy. If you are in Cameroon, you have to do it, and it must be registered in the Ministry of Justice in Cameroon. So if you don't renounce it, you still remain a Cameroonian, which means you have dual nationality. So I don't understand. It depends how other people are interpreting this law. I've read it. To me, Cameroon have got a dual nationality. I had this debate in one television with Professor Masanga Nyamdi, and he agreed with me on what I said.
No, Matt, that if you are a British citizen, as we speak now, if a Cameroonian is in the U.S. and he takes up the American nationality, when he comes back home, it's not the same as a Cameroonian who was not taking up another nationality. I hope you know about that.
I'm sure you did not get this point. What I say, in order for you to lose your Cameroonian nationality, you have to renounce it. There's a procedure. So if you take a foreign nationality, you don't renounce it, you haven't followed the formality, so you still remain a Cameroonian. That's what I'm saying. It depends how people are interpreting it. You must register it to the Ministry of Justice. Renounce means that you say, there's a procedure. Example, I'm here in the UK, I have to go to the Cameroon High Commissioner, I have to say I don't want to be a Cameroonian, they will do some formality, then they will have to register it in the Ministry of Justice. So if you don't follow that formality, you still remain a Cameroonian. That's dual nationality.
All the complaints about registration on the electoral list with regards to the upcoming elections next year in Cameroon, there were quite a lot of concerns in the diaspora about the late start of the registration exercise.
Mr. Babila, my concern about this issue, I see a lot of people canvassing, telling people to register. But to be honest, the people, they have to have a fair deal. We have council, local councils. People pay their taxes. Like in the United Kingdom, next week, on the 4th of July, we have an election. Before the Prime Minister called for an election, the local council wrote to me, the Prime Minister has called for an election. I don't need to do anything. I register with my local council. It is easy. So this myth about Elecam is expensive and they are spending money for nothing. We already have our local council. People should register via their local council. There's local council all over Cameroon. So why do we need Elecam when it comes to registration? If the government have the will and want people to register, the local council should register everybody. We don't need Elecam to do that. And the people don't have to spend their time canvassing for that. If you want impartiality, you want fair result, the result of any election in Cameroon starts via registration. And if the government doesn't give that ability for everyone to register wherever they are, then I believe people can start talking about an election not being fair.
All right, as of now, the electoral law says it is Elections Cameroon that is in charge of registering potential voters. As of now, that is what the law says. That is what obtains until when that is changed before we start talking about municipal council. Maybe that's a suggestion that the authorities should take into account to improve on the registration process. Now, let's come back home. Pascal, TAGUIA, FOMEKONG, you are a civil society leader and human rights advocate. And as we speak now, Cameroonians in the northwest and southwest regions of the country find themselves in a very difficult situation in which their rights are being violated, their right to movement violated, and even their right to health to a certain extent, because when people are prevented from moving, if it happens that somebody is sick during those hours, it will become difficult to move to the hospital and things like that. This is all because of the situation that's been prevailing in those two regions, and now we have injunctions coming from both sides. The authorities giving their own injunctions, the separatists giving their own injunctions, and the population are suffering in the middle. What's your take on this?
Well, Mr. Babila, I don't know what you expect me to say. As I said at the introduction, you are crying with them, because that's a very difficult situation where the people from Northwest especially, they find themselves in. And what I have to say, even the population, the worst thing is that the population is innocent in all this going. How did this thing start? Start with the teachers and the lawyers. Mountain we needed to have a dialogue. The dialogue never took place. Now the government is trying on its own to correct that. Now we can stand and we can stand and give accusations. This is the wrong, this is the right. But at the moment, the situation, as we said right from the beginning, these are situations that may take 40 years to be resolved. And I was happy that you really point out to bring the case of Kenya coming on, because later on we can compare and we see what's happening. Because Kenya,
But we'll talk about that later on. When they start, they never know how it's going to go. And that brings us to all what, just as you were discussing with Matt, by the way. Matt, allow me to say hello to you again. I forgot to say hello to you. But when this thing starts, this all came in Kenya because of the promises of Mr. Ruto. He gave promises during the elections.
We'll come to the situation in Kenya.
But this all shows us, how on the move. Because the government thought by putting muscles at the beginning, it was going to settle, to put the law of muscles against the law, the power of the muscle over the law, rather than having the force of the law against the muscles. And now we didn't have it. Now we are finding ourselves in a dilemma, in a very difficult situation of a dilemma. Should the government just go and just bomb, or what? Bombing who, for example? Because this is a very, very, as I said again, and we took just the right example. Imagine someone is sick during these hours, from 6 to 6. Just imagine, and he cannot travel, and he cannot move, and the doctor cannot move. Just imagine, and how many cases? Because tell you an hour, the hour it can come. So just the best to put on the table. The government gives injunction. We are not at the level of muscles today. No, that's how. As we said at the beginning, this issue at the beginning, there was an ideology behind. We need to get our thing do as we like to do it from the Anglo-Saxon way, how to do. But today is not that anymore. It's not that anymore. You have some fake, just like in Kenya again, it's happening. It's not anymore the youth now coming out. You have some guys who come in, and they create this order because that is the situation they have been waiting. So always the solution is to avoid it.
Referred to as criminals by the President William Ruto. Now, talking about the situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, the equation is difficult to be balanced. It's difficult to balance the equation here because the people are in the middle. Mm-hmm. If you go this way, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. If you go to the right, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. You go to the left, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So how to manage this situation? How to manage this? Because we are already there.
We are already there, as you are saying. Now, how to manage the situation? In one way, you have called it by the names. The Amazonians, I don't really see again these guys who had an ideology at the beginning. I see now a kind of hiding behind the ideology that was behind to create trouble. Hiding behind, because getting weapons and creating trouble is not very hard. Maybe you allow me to give this example. I remember once when Madame Fonny was still alive, I remember she had a problem, and she herself, she saw that muscles or weapons cannot settle it. There are issues that you don't settle, and Cameroon should have been the best example of that, because in Bakassi, through our African parliamentary, we got one of the richest peninsula in the world. We shouldn't have got into this, because now we don't have even the ideology anymore. Now you have criminals that are hiding behind the thing. So a solution, really, just as we said we said right from the beginning, this thing might just get worse and worse. Is the government going to bomb all Northwest and Southwest? That cannot be the solution. Will we ask people just to go and be spread in one side? That cannot be the solution. Amazonians, this is not the issue. So when you ask the question, really, as I said, we share the fears
about the manner in which the authorities are going about this issue, the response they are giving to these issues, because the decision, for example, taken by the senior division officer of the Mezam division banning the circulation of commercial motorbikes from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. was taken after a grenade attack by some individuals, unidentified persons, in a beer parlor that led to about 40 persons being injured, and at least two others killed and so on. But this kind of response to this situation, is it the adequate response? Is it the right response to the situation on the ground? See,
Mr. Babila, as I said again, just in Kenya, there are issues where police act, but we are not at the level of the police anymore. We have the army involved in that issue, because this is not the level of the police anymore. Now, I can't judge the attitude of the government. I'm poorly placed, I am an official, reserve officer. But my level, I say I can't judge, because how was there a better solution after this kind of act? You had 40 people injured. You had 2 kills. People were just there, innocent people. You're talking here of innocent people. Now, on one part, you have the soldiers. The other part, you have guys who want to create trouble. So I said the ideology is gone. That's the worst. I don't know if Met will have a better solution about this, but I say at the moment it's not even impossible. We had for some time, we had people from abroad, financing and all this. The government came on with a solution to say, we are going to take those who want to leave the weapons and see how to reintegrate them in the society.
But that solution seems not to be yielding the expected fruits. Now, Ahmed, let me come to you. Can we know your thoughts on this issue, this situation in which the people of the Northwest, particularly Bamenda and other parts of the 2 English-speaking regions, find themselves today with injunctions coming from both sides: ghost town, lockdown, no circulation of vehicles, and then the authorities on the other side trying to counter the actions of the separatists, but at the same time putting the population at a very risky position?
My view, which I will speak with it, taking into consideration the laws of the Cameroon, I would like to start by saying President Paul Biya identified that there is an issue in Northwest and Southwest, and he made that clear in the Paris Forum on the 14th of November 2019. I was part of the national dialogue. We invited to discuss the problem in Northwest and Southwest. But when we went there were 8 commissions talking about other regions of Cameroon, because the invitation was only about Northwest and Southwest. My point is, 1, the government has not got the will to solve the Anglophone problem. There's evidence. They don't want to do it. They talk about special status. There was no content. I was there in the national dialogue. Special status came about after I caused some chaos or entropy inside it. So it was not even part of the program, and there's no special status. To go back to your question now, I want to look in Cameroon. Article 2 of the Cameroon Constitution states sovereignty is vested to the people of Cameroon, and it shall be exercised by the President of the Republic and the parliamentarian. You have parliamentarians that are non-functional. We have a president that doesn't do anything. We don't see any president. And you might say he delegates power. No, you cannot delegate power indefinitely. The government of Cameroon, in the Constitution, Article 8, sub 3, it is clear that the President of the Republic shall ensure internal and external security of the country. But my point is, we have a problem in Northwest and Southwest. The problem is simple. Mr. Biya made it clear in the Paris Forum that the problem is cultural differences. So why can Mr. Biya not solve the cultural differences? It means that we have different institutions in Northwest, Southwest, as opposed to the French part of the Cameroon. So my point is, the government have failed when it comes to solving the Anglophone problem. Then when it comes now to injunction, generally, all governments, they have a general function. 1, to maintain law and order, to enforce law, to provide economic and social security. The government of Cameroon, to the best of my knowledge, if there is a problem like we have in Northwest and Southwest, if you don't solve the problem, then you start saying that, oh, people cannot go out at certain times. To be honest, you're punishing the people, and it's not proportionate. Our people need to live. A government, these are people who have authority to govern a people. And you don't govern the people by punishing the people, because that's what I see, that's what the government is doing. Again, why is the government imposing those injunctions or stopping people not to move at certain time? When you do that, we have what we call characteristics of failed state. It means there's political turmoil. You cannot control part of your territory. There's human rights abuses. So you can see all those characteristics that fall in the Cameroon. And my point is, they can put as many injunctions as they want. And I must make this clear. Protests, demonstration, marches are part of the laws in Cameroon. If you read Article 65 of the Cameroon Constitution, that the preamble is part and parcel of the Constitution. So the government cannot just come and be putting injunction on people. The sovereign people, to some extent, they have a right to challenge the government. It has to be proportionate because they are sovereign. You cannot be sovereign the people. Why you cannot? I could say the government knows what they have to do to bring calm and solve the problem in Northwest and Southwest. They are not doing that. You can stop the bike as much as you want. Nothing will ever stop. The problem is there. The government understands what they have to do. It's not about punishing our people. I speak to people, especially in Northwest region, and they're suffering.
Okay, Matt, that's about the part of the government, the decisions being taken by the government, the injunctions from the government. What about the injunctions coming from the separatist fighters? Some of those injunctions masterminded by those that I'll plead to call your former friends, some of your former friends. You were a separatist leader before and you decided to abandon it, but those who are still there, they are the ones spearheading some of these injunctions. Isn't it also a problem?
I should tell you, I started doing what I was doing when I was CPC Bali, walk in the street. I've not abandoned what I'm doing. I don't operate in groups. Protest is not a political organization. So when I go and do what I do, I come back home. That's how I operate. I don't join groups. However, I will make this point. It is clear. We have a government. You say people abroad. Okay, I'll give you categorically. I will not call it amber, but I will tell you how government operates. You cannot come in London and do things in the street, then they blame you. I want to use the word criminal in quotes. Criminal in quotes. You blame criminals. If you, a government, you cannot maintain law and order. I can come to the United Kingdom, in London. I say anything here, it is up to the mayor of London and the prime minister to deal with it. You don't blame, in quotes, criminals. You blame the government because the government get into power to use taxpayers' money to maintain law and order, to enforce law, to provide economic and social assistance. So there's only one government. You get into power to govern. And if you cannot govern, it means you are a failed state. There are characteristics of failed state. I've already talked about it. You cannot blame somebody else. You anticipate in general that I'm a government. Why do you have a criminal justice system in Cameroon? Because you know people will commit crime or something will happen. So you can never blame any person. Whether you call it criminal, whether you call it amber, people have a right to challenge a government. Everybody all over the world in the United Kingdom. I've been in a lot of protests in central London. 300 and something thousand people. They don't kill anybody. We protest. It is our right. It's inside the Constitution of Cameroon. You can read Article 65. But unfortunately, maybe inadvertently, some of our law officials or governors or GOs, they don't understand the law. If they read the law, they know they have no right to challenge people who are in a peaceful assembly or people who are protesting, marching peacefully. But I see every day they attack innocent people. People have a right to protest. People have a right to tell the government enough is enough. It is their right. When I was in Cameroon, there was no social media. We used to protest. I used to climb Bamenda Station Hill. We walk from CPC Bali. We stop school in Guakele, Parliament. It is our right. When we put you there as a government, if you don't implement policy that favors us, the people have a right to challenge you peacefully. They have a right to freedom of association. So to me, to blame people, whether they are abroad, whether they are in Africa, whether they are in Cameroon, you don't need to blame people. The government is there, and the job of a government is to govern, Mr. Babylon.
All right, thank you, Matt. We'll come back to you shortly. Now, when you listen to Alex NDIVE LISINGUE, there's a point that comes out. The government has the responsibility to protect the people, to ensure the well-being of the people. And so, if the people are being deprived of their rights, are being deprived of well-being, are being deprived of their right to movement, the only person to be blamed is the government.
Mr. Babila, definitely, when there is a lack of peace, the responsibility goes to the government. But I was a bit disappointed in the intervention of the lawyer, because he hasn't really answered the question of you see, what about the injunctions from the Amazonians? He hasn't really answered. He's talking of people have the freedom to march. I worked for 5 years in London. You must know. And you know, the Western culture is not the same as our culture. Maybe to understand and grab what I'll be trying to explain, you have to take the case of a minister that Mr. Biya appoints. When he appoints a minister, he goes and organizes a feast for all the village. The cahier de charge, responsibility that is allocated to that appointment is not really the main thing. We are from thousands of years of feudalism. It is in us. It doesn't depend even from intellectual shit. When you see an academician saying that he's the one, his creator is Mr. Biya, he's not alone. He's only one of those who speak like that. It wouldn't happen in London. So, my friend, what I would like to say is, democracy, maybe we need to go down to how it came, because we are talking of people have the right to do all this. Democracy was born in Athens, 447 years before Christ. I've got to mention Babylon, because we need to be on the same line. We need to answer the issues of our country. We need to get solution to suggest, because I know they are watching us, possible solution to what? Because the way we see this is just like it was the fault of the government. As I said at the beginning, the government did a big mistake. But now we are in an issue. What can we do? We have 4 people killed, or 2 people and 40 people that were injured from an issue from the separatists. Now, the government maybe chose the wrong way, or maybe chose a way that we can try to bring it more practical and all. But I think at the moment that may be the solution, because you say, okay, you are not going to let the motorcycle, let the government just leave the motorcycle do the, okay, fine, that's good for the populations. But now the separatists, what do? What have you done to help this population? Because the government, its role is to protect that population as well. You are talking of rights, my brother. That is what is the Western world. Because when the democracy was created in Athens, even the Greeks, they use the culture.
But those rights are universal, and they are enshrined in international legal instruments like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, duly signed and ratified by Cameroon. So it's not an issue of London or...
No. Mr. Babila, I get it right. No, listen. Let us take a simple example. When you go to Meomesa... And
even the Constitution of Cameroon makes provision for all that.
They makes it. This is the law. Now, the people practicing the law, have they grabbed it? Have they educated? When you go to Meomesa, just take the village of the president, and you see some people standing, say, we don't want to see any other party here than the party of the president. Do you think that that's come from Yaoundé? For me, there is a lot to be done before we reach that level. It did not come. England, where you are, who is the president? Is the queen. I was in England. God save the kings. After God is the queen in England, and she's there. So the way I look at these things, please, if you can find a solution to say, I will have suggested to the government that this is how to react against the injunctions of the separatists. We'll be together. Because I've been thinking, I try to look at solution, I don't find a solution, Mr. Babila.
All right, we'll take a look at that in a short while. Meto, let me come to you. Let me put this question to you. This is a question that comes up again and again when we're talking about these issues. And the question is, should you punish the same people that you're claiming to protect? We're talking about injunctions from separatist fighters who went ahead to burn 2 vehicles because they violated those instructions, and one of the vehicles was belongs to a person with impairment and who was living on that vehicle, even though it has been replaced by the Bamenda City Council. Now, when you have these things happening, the question that is coming up is, should they be punishing the same people they are claiming to be protecting?
My point is, Mr. Babila, who is a separatist fighter? I know CPD and people who are separatists, they don't fight. Separatist doesn't mean violent. Separatist doesn't mean you have a political ideology that you want to move from another body. So when you use that word separatist, I'm confused, because long ago, I can say as far as April, May 2017, I call people who kidnap for ransom, rape women, I say they are criminals. I don't use that word separatists because I know the meaning of separatists. We have separatists in the United Kingdom all over, they don't kill people. So if you go and kill people, you attack civilians, you breach UN Convention, war crime, you're a criminal. It's not separatism. And again, most of these people, some of them, they are in the interiors of Northwest or Southwest. Do you think they know what they are doing? It's because Mr. Biya have not created job for a long time. People just jump, I'm a separatist. Ask them if they know what they are separating. It's criminality because Mr. Biya have not created job for 42 years. It happens in the United Kingdom, in America. If you abandon youth, no job, peer pressure, they commit crime, but they don't call them separatists. So we must distinguish between a separatist and people who are committing or opportunists who are committing their crime. They say, well, if you're a separatist, as I say, if you're a genuine separatist, you won't attack civilians, you won't kidnap for ransom. They are criminals. Those people who do those things, they are not separatists. Because if I tell you my historically, I used to belong in the early 90s to a group called Southern Cameroon Youth League. We were not killing people, we were protesting, and Mr. Biya was not attacking us. There was no social media. I used to do those things in Cameroon. We used to belong to Southern Cameroon Youth League. But today, when I see people, they stand, they should attack people, cut their hands. It's an honor to call them separatists. They are criminals because I know what separatists do. Separatists doesn't mean to be violent. But however, the buck stops with the government. A government is a group of people who have authority to govern a country. To govern a country means make policies or decision that will prevent such things to happen. But when we have a non-functional government, you don't see the president, the prime minister is quiet. For more than 8 years, the members of parliament and senators in Northwest and Southwest, they don't represent their constituents, they don't talk. So the buck stops with the government to me.
All right, we're going to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week. This is the press review. Right, we begin the press review with the National Daily Cameroon Tribune, which talks about some changes in the country, notably the price of or the cost of obtaining a national identity card that has moved up from a little above 2,000 francs CFA to over 10,000 francs CFA, and with other things surrounding other requirements, shifting it to about 15,500 francs CFA. And the Horizon newspaper talks about outrage at hike in ID card issuance. The population are groaning, expressing their anger, disappointment, frustration, and disapproval of the ordinance signed by the President of the Republic, increasing the cost of obtaining that very important identification document in the Republic of Cameroon. The Guardian Post: time for lawmakers to defend interest of people they represent. The Guardian Post notably talks about the lawmakers who have been urged by two civil society organizations, two consumer organizations, to reject that ordinance of the President of the Republic on the increase in the cost of obtaining a national identity card. And the Guardian Post says this is time for the lawmakers to defend the people they represent in Parliament. Another issue of the Guardian Post newspaper says ordinance to readjust state budget. Government slashes fuel mission allowances by over 80 billion francs CFA, a reduction in the cost of mission allowances by over 80 billion francs CFA. Another issue of Cameroon Tribune talks about food insecurity in Cameroon. Comment en sortir? That is the question on the front page of Cameroon Tribune, how to come out of the issue of food insecurity in Cameroon, notably with the issues in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, preventing or limiting, reducing the production that used to come from those parts of the country. Another issue of Cameroon Tribune newspaper talks about the border between Cameroon and the Central African Republic, a 901-kilometer border, which Cameroon Tribune says should be secured. That is the headline on the front page of Cameroon Tribune, referring to the meeting that took place in Equatorial Guinea, bringing together authorities from both countries to discuss security issues along the border. And Cameroon Tribune talks about it, while the Guardian Post says Yaoundé-Bangui relations. Minat Boss leads Cameroon's delegation to border demarcation talks in the Central African Republic, talking about the Minister of Territorial Administration, Atanganji Paul, who led the Cameroonian delegation to Bangui in the Central African Republic to discuss the demarcation of the borders between the two nations. And the Voice newspaper talks about Cameroon's first mineral lab being established, the first mineral lab, and is talking about the Nguvayang iron mine that will be established in the Republic of Cameroon. And yet another issue of Cameroon Tribune talks about the death of two former indomitable lions, and notably Landry Ngemo, former indomitable lion, who died in an accident on the Bafoussam Yaoundé road. The accident which occurred around Ebebda in the central region of the country led to the death of the former indomitable lion. And that's it for today's edition of the Press Review. That's it for what the newspapers. Thank you for staying with us. We are still with our guests, Maître Alex NDIVE LISINGUE, joining us from London, and Pascal TAGUIA FOMEKONG. Pascal, I begin with you. Let us propose solutions, because the most important thing in all these discussions is the way out, is how to come out of this very difficult situation that is complicating life for Cameroonians in those two regions. We have been proposing solutions for over 8 years now, but we will not stop until the solutions are seen on the ground, the result are seen on the ground, a return to peace and normalcy in those two regions. Tell us, what is your take, in some few lines, how to come out of these issues?
Good. Definitely, I think that even from television, I've seen an improvement in the language, because people used to talk terrorists, but you see, since we started, nobody really talked about terrorism. I think that there's always an opening for a dialogue. Without a dialogue, even with those, my friend went to the point of calling them criminals. Those criminals can be identified. I am sure, and knowing the police of Cameroon, one of the best, maybe in Africa, they can be identified. Hear what they want. Talk with them. Don't call them terrorists, because the economic loss that we are getting, I'm not just talking of the human, or the way all what we are losing, the country losing in that mess. We need to consider them. We cannot just sit down and say they are criminals. We consider them as criminals, because even if the government, as the government has said, these injunctions are maybe decided, no bearskin or no motorcycle to run from 6 to 6 p.m. this away, but it does not satisfy the population, just like Matt is putting out. But maybe this is a solution, a temporal solution. In the meantime, the government, I believe, Cameroon government, the police, or maybe, let's say the government general, has a way to listen to all.
Dialogue and dialogue. Again and again. For over 8 years, we've been saying this, but that seems not to be happening.
Well, go back to what I said at the beginning, Mr. Babila. I said, and I can remember at least from Afrik Media to all the TV where I passed, I said not to sit and talk with the lawyers and the teachers was a mistake not to be done. Because we need to understand something. You see what happened?
Continue talking because it was actually.
Yeah, but you see what happened in TV5 in France. It's something that is obvious. You have always some predators standing and waiting for the spark. They always be around. Call them criminals, call them terrorists, call them whatever. Don't give the door. We have opened the door. We need to find a way, and that's it. I still come back
to find a way and close that door.
Close that door.
Okay, Maître NDIVE, Alex LISINGUE, what is the way out of this situation now?
Yeah, before I go and answer your question, I should make this clear. Okay? As a lawyer, when I come and say people commit crime, it's not me saying it. If you murder somebody, it's murder. I'm not the one saying it. If you kidnap, it's a criminal offense. I am not the one saying it. If you look at the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and the UN Convention on War Crime, if you burn public property and destroy, kidnap people for ransom, what do you call, you put lockdown. It's not Metro Alex LISINGUE say it's the UN Convention on War Crime. So sometimes when we talk on platform, people should not misquote me. So I'm not the one saying it, it's the law. So it's not me. And when they say terrorist is a criminal. There's no difference. The only difference between an ordinary criminal with a terrorist is that you're doing it for political objective. Terrorism is using unlawful violence, especially against civilians for political objective. That's the definition of terrorism. So it's not a magical word. So if today I want to attack...
So where is the way out of this situation in which we find ourselves today?
And I'll first start by the difficulty why President Paul Biya's government doesn't want to solve the problem. One, we are in CEMAC. We have joint sovereignty, so it is difficult. We are entrapped inside a French system. And it is difficult now to these people who have given contract to Glencore, Savannah Energy, like CDC. Or the CDC constitution says all the products in CDC, they must export it. Export it to the West. So those are the difficulties that La Republique, the government doesn't want to bring those changes. But however, the solution is there. Mr. Biya knows it very well. Everybody knows it. The solution is in England, in UK where we live. There are 4 countries there. We have decentralization in Scotland. They have their own parliament. I believe the Anglophones, they should have a parliament to debate about their economic issue, about health issue, about policing, about taxation. We need that parliament. That's the first step. That's what the Anglophone they need, because Mr. Biya clearly identified that we have cultural differences. If you look at ENAM, it was something that was created in France in 1945. They are imposing it on us. If you look at France CF, it was created in France 1945, imposing it on us. Gendarme was created in France in 1791. It's a French military army. We have our police. They are imposing it on us. If you look at all these states, we don't need it. ENAM should be in the French side. Britain, United Kingdom is made up of 4 countries. Are they not living in peace? Scotland have got its own money. England and Wales, they have money. Are they not still in the same country? So I've never seen, no country on planet Earth hasn't gone one size fits all. There are 250 ethnicities in Cameroon. So how can one person sit in A to D? People with different ethnicity custom, you impose one system on them. I see people trying to compare President Biden with Mr. Biya. President Biden's power are limited. In the United States of America, you have governors. They have power. They govern those states as if it's a country. You have mayors. They have power. So Mr. Biya have got more powers than President Biden. President Biden doesn't infringe on state or local council or on those things. The powers are decentralized. There's transfer of power. In a nutshell, to solve the Anglophone problem is about transferring of power. 2 countries came together, 2 different institutions French institution in the French part of Cameroon, English institution in the English part of Cameroon. That is how you can solve that problem.
All right, we're going to take some interviews right now. We'll be back in some few minutes. Interviews of the week.
The northwest and southwest region of Cameroon have been in crisis for the past 8 years, and administrators have kept taking measures together with the population to uplift the living condition of the population, and especially improved upon the security. And in as much as that is being done, on the other side, the separatist fighters are also increasing in their tactics to keep their relevance on the population. So in this light, some few months back, it was a decision taken by the administration, of Mezam to stop bike riders from, parading the streets of Mezam between the hours of 6:30 p.m. and of course 6 a.m. in the morning. And the reasons given by the administrators on this decision was to, limit the acts of kidnappings and insecurity that was perpetrated on the population. As per the administration, they actually thought that with bike riders facilitate this. And on the other hand, the separatists said, but if bikes have to stop circulating at this time, then they would also not allow transport vehicles like taxis, to circulate within this period. So it brought this commotion between the administration and, of course, the separatists. But in this context, the population have been paying the price, because this brought a lot of, hardship on the population. The taxi drivers, the bike riders, they have income that they make from plying the town with already a time that is very limited, mindful of the fact that the crisis have ravaged the region for all this while. So most of those who do bike riding and taxi businesses, they are just small income earners coupled with the very bad roads. They are struggling, to catch up with the very difficult economy, and they thought this time reduction was not the best. That is on both sides, the administration and of course the separatists. They thought both decisions were not beneficial to the population. Well, let me just take, for example, a pregnant woman who is suffering labor in the night around midnight and needs to move to a medical facility to deliver. And such a lady perhaps would not have a bike, she won't have a taxi, and if the neighborhood people do not have cars, what happens? Let's even assume that there are cars and no car is supposed to circulate at that time, no bike is supposed to circulate, and this lady has to move to the medical facility. Well, in some cases, an ambulance could pick up a lady, but this depends on if those in the neighborhood have the contact of the ambulance. And the network situation is fluctuating. You could be calling at the time when the ambulance is there, the driver is there, but the network is not there, and this lady needs to deliver. How do you move the lady, to the hospital facility? This is just an example. And secondly, just for example, say there is already a lady who is pregnant and in the hospital about to deliver, and her case requires emergency. A medical doctor needs to move from his residence to the hospital at that time, perhaps to join the team of doctors who are there. What happens? That he cannot move to the medical facility. These are some of the practical examples and the difficulties that the population are really faced with. Babies, a lot of kids get hot in the night. Sometimes their temperature go above 40. With malaria, that is occurrence. What do you do with this type of children? So it's a whole ball game that puts a lot of people in difficulties. And there are also people who work only in the night, like those who are working in the bakery, those who are pharmacists who have to serve on pharmacy on call, others who perhaps need to go get fresh vegetable to put on the market space very early in the morning, like buy and sell. all of them basically do their job in the night, you know, between the hours of 6 in the evening and 6 in the morning. Most people work during this period. And just imagine that they cannot move because bikes are not available, taxis are not available. Just imagine their challenges. So it's putting the population in real difficulties. And with increased prices, the economy is not the best. It's really a battered situation. The population is desperate.
It is too much. We are tired. The women are all sick of these drugs dealers and drug sellers or whatever they call them. We have decided that this time around we will not let them go free. It is too much. We are not afraid of any drug sellers. Yeah. We are not afraid of them. We have decided that they will go. So all women must sit up. Yeah. All women must sit up.
Fighting against illegal drug consumption in their neighborhoods. Pascal, what do you think about that?
This is a sign of all how the economy of our country has gone down, because I always say about this issue, people go there because they don't have the means to go to the pharmacy also, but that's not the best solution. But people, we have to go to that level.
We're talking about Indian hemp, marijuana, and all the illegal drugs.
Right. I didn't really try that one, but I understand. Of course, women coming, they have to do it, because that's why all the country fighting against drug dealers and all as the first priority, because these are not women and they transform people. These guys in the forest also, as you see in Northwest, also that's what they consume. They think that they're more. So really, that I appreciate the courage of the woman to go to that extent. I think something like that happened. Was that in Kumba? That it happened in Kumba?
Yes, in Kumba.
That's what happened in Kumba. I really appreciate the courage of the women going to that extent.
All right, let's talk about the power of youth in Africa. This is a continent with over 40% of its population around the age of 15, according to statistics as of 2023. And we saw young people, a new generation of young and bold persons on the streets protesting against some tax hikes, and at the end of the day compelling the government, the president William Ruto, to come out and say, I'm not going to promulgate these bills into law anymore.
Still they did not stop.
And still they did not stop. Now they are asking for his resignation.
Yes.
And so on. But we're not really focusing on that. We want to focus on what appears to be like something that depicts the power of young people in Africa.
The case of Kenya, for me, in my little corner, is an image that all Africa has to grasp. You see, statistics say that in 30 or 40 years, Africa will have 2 billion of people. And among the 2 billion of people, 60% will be of less than 20 years old. Can you imagine the power in the hands of? And that's why really we have a lot of hope if we can manage that way. Because at the same time, the Western world, take France for example, the statistics, they say in France you have less than 15% more, or let's say you have 15% less normal sex. So the population of the West is going, oh, why Africa is coming up with a power? Because can you imagine the reaction of Mr. Ruto? And that also teaches those who come, they propose themselves to be president and all what they say, because he said it, these are his promises. But it's now that it is discovered that 70%, he was counting on 70% of his GDP to fulfill the promises that he gave in the elections. He was counting on that. Because 70% of the budget of that country runs from the debts of the GDP, runs from debts. So now the only way out was to go to the tax, but now see where he's finding himself. And that population, he even came and withdrew what he said. He tried to change, say, I'm not going to promulgate it. But this guy is going to say, you resign. It comes down to what? Something I like to quickly say. I'm of the generation of 1982, where we were saying, whoever's to come, no problem. I just go. And people will come up with promises. Whoever come, okay, yeah, must go. I think that the population needs to go to education. And in my own country, I said,
is there any lesson that can be picked out of the reaction of President William Ruto deciding to say, okay, I've heard you, I'm going to back down on this decision. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to respond to your plight.
Yeah, well, there's a great lesson to say to other African countries and the youth, and also to teach youth, tell the youth, it's your time to stand and say and give, because you are the future and you have the population power. Well, in the case of Kenya, it's very easy because they have only one language, or they speak two languages, English and Swahili, that unite them. When I try to compare to the case of Cameroon, that's virtually like kind of impossible, because we have over 300 tribal tendencies and 2 foreign predatory languages that divide us. What we just live in the case of Nous,
which appear not to be factors of unity.
And
all right, Alex NDIVE LISINGUE, what's your take on the power of the young people in the African continent, in the light of what happened in Kenya, where young people pressed for change and saw the change coming forth?
Jonathan, what is very important to me is conviction. Because a lot of people today, they just sit and think government have absolute rights. They don't know what we have in a democracy. We have a social contract. We have limited our rights, and we have given the government some of our rights so that they can protect us, so that they can harness our natural resources and use it and bring about economic development and social changes. But in Africa, unfortunately, nearly all African countries, they don't want to industrialize. Some years back, maybe about a year ago, President Ruto made a statement and said, if we don't go to these meetings that they bundle all African presidents in one room, they will threaten us. I lost respect from President Ruto since that day. You see, most African presidents are just there for window dressing exercise. Because you cannot, a country like Kenya, they have gold, they have iron, steel. You don't need much, just beans that we have in the UK is worth millions. Pepper that we have in Cameroon is worth millions in the supermarket in this country. Chocolate, cocoa. Why can we not be producing those things in our country? But as President Ruto says, these people who say they are president in Africa are window dressing exercise. And to me, it is high time, as I say, John Luke and other people, they say a government that is repressive, people have to challenge them. It is normal. We cannot just stand and look at governments all over the world and we think, oh, we cannot do anything. And I must make this clear. It's easy for me. I sit in London, I'm talking. I must say this. When I was in Cameroon, we walked from CPC, but we stopped all the school because René Zengele wanted to harmonize our English education. The first time I came to Bamenda when I was a teenager, we walked from downtown Bamenda, went to the governor's office. In Guakele Parliament, we used to protest. So I don't understand the people today. I don't know whether it's lack of conviction or they're afraid or whatsoever. To me, I'm not saying in the Cameroon Constitution, Article 65, you have the right to protest. You can protest. They can only limit your right of protest when it is proportionate because of maybe public safety, to prevent crime or health issues, or to protect the rights of other people. But when I say protest, in Cameroon, when you hear protest, if the government or the police they hear, they think that is a bad thing. No, it's in our constitution, Article 65. When you say protest, it doesn't mean it must be violent. So people have a right to protest. I was in Cameroon in November, December 2022. I went to the street. I saw how Yaoundé was so dirty, aqua. I made video. I was protesting on my own. That is so dirty, and I put it on social media. That is protesting. You have the right to protest. And sometimes people look at me like an idiot. I was there, family, friends, no light. As I'm talking like
this. The record met that what is happening in Kenya today actually started on TikTok. No political party organized it. No civil society leader mobilized the youths. But it started on TikTok, an expression of anger on TikTok that led to what we are seeing today. And now, but Matt, how to understand the situation in which prices are increased, basic commodities prices are skyrocketing, inflation is there, the cost of obtaining a national identity card now is being increased, but nobody seems to be saying anything. We are all grumbling in our rooms.
Phone tax in Cameroon. I was one of the person who started that. That phone tax was a tax on the poor people. We started a campaign, and the president of the Cameroons, what did they do? They canceled the Mr. Biya said, is it a decree, and the phone tax was kicked off. This time I saw it again. I've reached that stage when I look, especially the people of Cameroon. I said, I'm crying more than the bereaved. I was in Cameroon, no electricity, no water. In Yaoundé, everybody just looked. Alex, we feel sorry for you. How can you feel sorry for me? I don't live there. And people just keep quiet. They think everything is okay. If you go and protest that there's no electricity, no water, the government of Mr. Biya will not do anything. But people protest sometimes for the wrong reasons, which I will not say it on your platform. If you don't have water, you don't have electricity, the increased ID card, what's the ID card used for? In the United Kingdom, we don't even have ID card. We don't have it. 65 million people, we don't have it, it's useless. So to me, it's an increase in tax. But my point is, when you go to Cameroon, I was there, everybody said, oh, if you do this, the police will do you. I said, what should they, why should they do you? I'm talking about death on the street. People frighten you. I was in a public transport, a taxi in Yaoundé, a taxi man, vous parlez la politique au Cameroun. People frighten you everywhere in Cameroon. They frighten you. And everybody have taken that idea that if you talk, they will kill you. They won't kill you if you know your right. I'm not saying. Follow your right, follow the law, go and protest. Sometimes arrange to go and protest in front of the American embassy. There is no light in our country. Why should the police attack you? Insofar as you follow the rules in that country. I'm talking like somebody that I used to do it when I was there. There was no even social media. But the problem is, I look at it, there's a cultural differences. When I look at Kenya, their culture is different from what we have now, because most Anglophones now, they are losing that Anglophone culture. When I used to be there, we used to protest. Then again, you look at Senegal, they had this president who laid a foundation, Senghor, who was a minister in France before Senegalese had their independence. So when I look at Cameroon now, whether it's Stockholm Syndrome, we have been in that situation. Mr. Biya have been there for almost 42 years. Then people look at it, oh, people have tried, nothing changed. So we have reached that point that we are losing our senses, and we say, oh, nothing can ever change. And we are waiting for divine intervention. As I make it on your program, to protest doesn't mean violence. It is your constitutional right, Article 65. People should go and read it. Cameroonians, if they are not happy, the sovereign people, they should go and protest. It is non-violent. I'm not saying be violent. That's not it. Protest is your right. The earlier our people, they know that they have the right to say when the government is doing something, we don't want it anymore. We are on social media. I'll give you one point. The mistake I see most Cameroonians on social media, they spend their time attacking each other rather than looking for what is important. Example, ID card is there, we don't want it. No electricity. If we join together, we protest on those things that will help our people. That's what I've always been doing. When we started protests in London, it was because the brutalized university student in Goya. It's because the trade union leaders. It was not because we started the protest that way.
All right, some connection issues there with Metro. Alex NDIVE, LISINGUE, we retain from you that there should be, people have the right to protest, but they don't have the right to violence. You have the right to protest against what is not moving right, what is not working right, but not the right to violence. And however, However, it should be recalled that Mancho BBC is in detention today for taking to the street in the town of Bamenda to protest against bad roads. And the repression is there, but I can understand from Maitre Lex Diveli Singh that we must, or Cameroonians, have to break the yoke of fear, and fight for the right. Now, what do you think about this? Pascal, TAGUIA FOMEKONG, you are also a right defender, a human rights defender.
I try in defending to remain as pragmatic, as practical as possible. What we have in Nous started how? We have people protesting. Is that not right? This is the reality in our place. I would like to ask Matt, with all your protesting, how far did you go? And let me mention something. I was very close to late Madame Fonny. And that lady one day told me, when you start knocking your head on the tree, you are not going to break the tree, it's the tree that's going to break you. I don't say this with judgment. It's very good to see the Western dream, democracy work. What I'm suggesting...
Are you saying that the government of Cameroon is a tree? If the people go knocking their head on that tree, they will break their head?
Because you see intellectuals coming on television, academicians standing and promoting tribalism. Yes, happening now. You wouldn't see that in Britain. You wouldn't see that reality when you're talking of democracy. What I'm trying to say, we need to be more practical, not bring dreams among people. When we talk of we have the right, it's right. Even that right, how did it start? If you remember, at the Declaration of the Human Rights, Africa was not involved while we were the Kwame Nkrumah. These things have started things, and the whites in Berlin, they knew it. We just need to know. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about unity, and that's why we are put on a platform where we want every Cameroonian to have a pennant. This is the only way ahead.
So
one thing that Nettie said something very important. He talked about, we need to put autonomy, or I will have talked even of federalism. That the government of Cameroon doesn't understand that bringing federalism is not like to divide people or to have less power. No, this is a way out. And I forgot to talk about
our next door neighbor, Nigeria, is a federal country.
So this is, when you ask solutions, I forgot to say this is a way out. Because the culture, the British culture, is completely different of the French culture. Now, the French culture, that always put behind my mind, because I still see Roosevelt and Mr. Toussaint from France refusing when the Human Rights Declaration is going to be set on in 1949. They saying that Africa is not mature enough to have a representative, while you are already the Kwame Nkrumah, even teaching in American universities. So right from the base, right from Berlin, from November 1884 to February 1885, this has been planned, and we are just jumping inside.
Right now, we need to move from where we are and move and go forward.
Being practical.
Not going
Being
back.
practical, because at the moment it is our children in our West, it is our people getting killed while the predator is sitting there. So I don't think that dividing more is going to get us. But at the same time, we need to take care, to take in account the culture, that side. That's why I said federalism, or maybe having autonomy. I am really thinking that may be the best solution. And that way really accuse the government.
Talks about confederalism.
And all this.
All right, we are already rounding up, but before we go, you're piloting a movement on unity.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little more about that.
Yes, Mr. Babila, it's a pleasure. I see our TV on other televisions like Yaoundé. All next week I will be invited, and I present it to all Cameroonians. Whatever party you are coming from, whatever you think about Cameroon, it's apolitical. It has nothing to do with politics. We intend, within the next few months, to distribute at least 500,000 of our pennants. It's our country. Whatever the cultural background is done bad to us, because I'm talking here of France, talking of Britain. It is our country, our only country. Get and acquire one of them. It's very beautiful. You have a wood, because
what is the essence of that? Is it a unifying factor?
Yeah, unifying factor. And whether we get into federalism or not, it is a unifying factor to say Everybody has to point his eyes, because we have reached a country where people talk about the authorities as in the third person. They, like if they were coming from another planet, they came out from us and they are there. We have to go to the point, and that's why I say the elections, we see everybody is somewhere involved. Elections are meant to bring harmony after election. Is it intended to bring?
And not chaos.
And nothing.
All right, Pascal.
So, thank you.
FOMEKONG, civil society leader, human rights defender. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Babila.
Maitre Alex NDIVE LISINGUE, who joined us in this program from London. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. And if you don't mind, if you have 1 minute, I should tell you that protest doesn't mean you need a lot of people. You can have one person. Protest can be petition, it can be boycott, it can be picketing, it can be demonstration. There are different protests, so we shouldn't. Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to be on your program today.
Thank you, dear viewers, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Inside. You can follow the program on our social media handles, on the Facebook and on YouTube, of course. And you can follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Stay with us if you can.